Welcome back everyone to another DSCC lab walkthrough. Today we'll be going over lab 2, configure certificate revocation. Our main tasks are to configure issuing CA/CRL and AIA publication parameters, deploy and configure online responder service, and validate initial PKI deployment health. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into task 1, configure issuing CA/CRL and AIA publication parameters. So let's go ahead and open up a PowerShell session as an administrator. And the first thing we're going to configure is our audit filter. So let's type in a cert util tag set reg space ca / audit filter, and we're going to set this to 127. Alright, so that command completed successfully. We've set our audit filter. So now let's go ahead and open our registry so we can change some registry keys. Let's type in regedit, and we're going to navigate to our sub-CA folder. So we'll type in hkey local machine, then system, then current control set, then services, certification service, or certs SVC, configuration, and then our sub-CA. Now in this folder, the first thing that we're going to change is our CA cert publication URLs. Now we did this in our sub-CA as well, or excuse me, in our root CA, so this configuration is going to be a little bit similar with the exception of a few things. Now this step is not a part of the actual lab, but it's something I'm adding on. I already have I have a file with all the things that I need to configure, such as certain commands and my CRL and CA URLs. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that up so I can copy them over. Now make sure that before you copy these over from your lab, you're changing them from that xxmu to whatever mu or your environment that you're in. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this over. Now I will add that there is one extra line that is included in your labs that I forgot to do at this point, and I had to go back and add it later on, and that's that 0 file / the percent symbol 1 / cert enroll / percent symbol 1 _ percent 3 %4.crt. So if you see here, before I change it, it's in there. I forgot to add it during this step when I was actually running through the lab, but I went ahead and corrected that issue later on. Alright, so now that we've configured that, I'm going to close out my registry, and I'm going to open my certification authority so that I can reset my services. So let's go ahead and right click on our sub-CA, head over to all task, and stop service. Okay, and then let's do the same thing and start service. Okay, perfect. So now we can go ahead and right click on our sub-CA, head over to properties and select the extensions tab, and we can verify the URLs that we just configured in our registry. There's my CRL distribution point URLs. And let's change this to my authority information access URLs. Alright, so now that we've completed that, we're going to publish our CRLs. But before we do that, we're going to head over to the properties of our revoked certificates folder and uncheck publish delta CRLs. So once you've configured that, click on OK. Then right click on your revoked certificates folder, all task, and publish. Now remember, you won't see anything populate over here in this middle pane. Even if you refresh it, there's nothing there. Your CRLs are going to populate in your C drive under the Windows System32 folder, certificate service, certain role, and in here you'll see that I just populated this CRL right now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to the next step, which is to copy the root CA certificate and CRL to the virtual directory path on our sub CA. So we should already have our root CA certificate and CRL on our sub CA at this point in our lab from the previous lab when we moved them over. But if you don't, go ahead and copy them over from your root CA using your floppy disk, like I am doing in this example right now. Alright, so it's not connected. Let me connect my floppy disk real quick. Alright, so there's my floppy disk. So now let's go ahead and copy over my root CA CRL and certificate. Alright, so there I have it. I've now copied over my root CA CRL and certificate into my directory path on my sub CA. Now let's go ahead and move forward and create a CNAME record in DNS for pki.xxmu.usmc.mil. Now at the end of lab 1, we configured our IIS service on our sub CA. So this is that example again, right? I'm connected to that virtual directory using a web page, and I'm using my sub CA host name to connect to it. And right there you can see the new CRL and certificate that I just added to that path in my sub CA. But now I want to create a CNAME so that I don't have to connect to this directory using my host name. I want to use a specific URL, and that URL is going to be the pki.xxmu.usmc.mil. So instead of my sub CA, I want to change that. So let's go ahead and open up our DNS settings on our domain controller. Let's head over to our forward lookup zone. As you can see, I already have a sub CA forward lookup zone record and a record pointer record in my reverse lookup zone as well. So now let's head back into my forward lookup zone and create a new alias or CNAME record. Now my alias for this configuration is going to be PKI. So in that alias box, the only thing I am going to type is PKI. Right under it, you see the fully qualified domain name that it's going to be, which is pki.11mu.usmc.mil. Now in that very bottom portion, we're going to input the FQDN of the target host, or where we want it to connect to. And in this case, it's going to be our sub CA. So type in the fully qualified domain name of your sub-CA in this portion, and then click on OK once you've input that information. Alright, and now we can see that our PKI alias CNAME record has populated in there. So now let's attempt to connect to that web page using this new URL that we've created. So http://pki.11mu.usmc.mil, and I get this initial blue splash screen that I got the previous time, right? So this lets me know that my CNAME is configured correctly and that I can connect to my sub CA as I need to. Alright, let's go ahead and complete task 2 now, which is to deploy and configure our online responder service. So I'm logged into my OCSP right now, and this is a blank virtual machine. I don't have anything configured, so we're going to complete the basic initial configs, which include adding it to the domain, configuring the IP settings to it, pre-staging that object in Active Directory into its proper OU, turning off the firewall, and that should be pretty much it. So let's go ahead and knock that out once my server manager finishes loading up. Alright, so I've completed my basic initial configs. Now let's go ahead and add the OCSP role to my OCSP server. Go ahead and navigate to the server roles portion of your add roles and features and select Active Directory Certificate Services. Click on Next and click on Next on the features page. Click on Next on the Active Directory Certificate Services intro or brief page. And then here we're going to uncheck certification authority, and we are going to select the server role that we want to install, which in this case is the online responder. And we'll add the necessary features and click on Next. Click on Next on the web server roles page and click on Next under the role services page as well, and then complete the installation. Alright, so now that the installation is complete, let's go ahead and click on that blue hyperlink. Let's change these credentials to our domain admin. So click on change, input your DA credentials, click on next, and select online responder for role services to configure, and then click on configure. Alright, so our configuration or installation has completed successfully now. Let's go on to the next step, which is to add the OCSP URL to the AIA extended extension. So let's head back to our sub-CA and log in. And now let's go ahead and right click on the sub-CA and navigate to properties. And then your extensions tab. And in here we are going to click authority information access and then click on add. And then we're going to input the URL for our OCSP, which is going to be http:// xxmu, or in my case 11mu OCSP dot 11mu dot usmc dot mil / OCSP. Click on OK once you've input your location or URL, and then go ahead and click on Apply once you verify that your URL has been added. Now, this is going to prompt you to restart your service, so click on OK. And once that is complete, one more thing before we exit this out is we're going to click on this Include in the Online Certificate Status Protocol extension and click on Apply. Now you can do this before you click Apply the previous time so that you only have to restart the service once. But if not, I mean, it doesn't really make a big difference. You'll just have to restart the service once again, as you see it happening right now. Alright, so now that that's complete, go ahead and click on OK. And now let's create and publish an OCSP signing template. So in the same console, we're going to head over to our certificate templates folder, still in my sub-CA. So let's go ahead and right click on that certificate templates folder. Then go ahead and click on Manage. And here we see our certificate templates console. So now let's go ahead and look for the OCSP response signing template. Double click that so you can edit the properties of it. And we're going to change a few things in here. The first thing we're going to do is head over to the Security tab, and we're going to add the OCSP computer account and give it read and enroll permissions. Now, if I click this 11mu OCSP or type that in there and check name, you see that I get this error, right? So by default, I can only search my user, groups, or built-in security principles. So I need to change my object types to add computers. Go ahead and click OK, and now that I click on check names, you can see that my 11mu OCSP has populated in there, and it even shows a little computer icon next to it as well. So now let's click on Allow Enroll and click on Apply and click on OK. So now that we've set the settings on this template, we can go ahead and close this certificate templates console out, and now we are going to issue this template. So go ahead and right click on your certificate templates folder, click on New and certificate template to issue. Then we're going to select our OCSP response signing template, highlight it, click OK, and now you see that my template is being issued. So now let's use the Revocation configuration wizard to set up a required OCSP responder configuration. So for this step, I'm going to log back into my OCSP. And let's log in as my DA. Okay, so in Server Manager, let's head over to Tools, and let's open up our Online Responder Management console. Alright, so now let's configure a revocation, revocation. So right click on revocation configuration and add revocation configuration. Now here are some of the steps that you're going to need to do in this wizard. So go ahead and click on next. And let's set the name to our configuration. We'll just set it RC for revocation configuration tag 11mu sub CA. Click on next. We're going to select a certificate for an existing enterprise CA. Now that option comes selected by default, so let's click on next. Browse CA certificates published in the Active Directory. Let's go ahead and click on browse and select our sub CA, which should be our only option. Click OK, and you'll see the name pop up or populate right there in the bottom. Click on next. You see that our certificate template is selected there by default. It's the only option we have. It's the only template that we're issuing out right now. So once you verify that these configurations are correct and as they should be, right click on next. Okay, now on the revocation provider, we're going to select provider. And we're going to move our PKI option up or the LDAP option down. Same thing, right? We want our PKI URL to take priority. So let's change the refresh CRLs interval. And then click on finish. Okay, and we see that our configuration is working. And if I go and if I click on my array configuration and then 11mu OCSP, I see at the very bottom that my signing certificate says OK. Now let's move on to the next step, which is to configure a GPO to provide OCSP URL for issuing CA as a migration to OCSP configuration. So let me log back into my domain controller. And I'm going to open a PowerShell session as an administrator, of course. And I'm going to type CMD. Then I'm going to change my directory to my C drive. And then I'm going to essentially export or transfer over the sub CA certificate to my domain controller so that it can be used in the GPO that I will be configuring. So let's type insert util space tac config space 11mu sub ca.11mu.usmc.mil slash 11mu sub ca space tac ca.cert and then space 11mu sub ca.cer. And that last portion is just the name of the certificate I'll be exporting. So there we have it, command completed successfully. And now we can open up our group policy management console. Now this GPO, we are going to link it at the root of our domain. And we're going to name it 11mu certificate policy. Now let's go ahead and edit the GPO that we've created. And let's navigate down to computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security settings, and then public key policies nodes. Public key policies. And what we're looking for is the intermediate certificate authorities folder. Right click on that and select import. And instead of clicking on browse, we're going to type in the location of this certificate, which should be the C drive, and then the name of the file. This information, you can get it from the command that we just ran, right? That's the reason that we changed our directory to the C drive, and that's what we named the certificate. Go ahead and complete the configuration. And now if I open up my intermediate certificates folder, it's going to take a second, so let's go ahead and wait. But once it's complete, you'll see that the import was successful there through a little prompt, and then I'll open up this folder and I'll see my sub-CA certificate. Now let's right click on this certificate, click on properties, and head over to the OCSP tab. And we're going to add the URL of our OCSP, which is http://11mu OCSP.11mu.usmc.mil/OCSP. Then click on add URL and click on apply and click on OK. And then close your GPO editor out. Okay, so now we can go ahead and use the PKI view to analyze the configuration health. So in your sub-CA, open up a run command and type pkiview.msc. Now let's go ahead and check the health of our locations. Now I see that I have an error there. The reason I have an error on that location number 2 is because I changed the name of my certificate for my root CA. So that's something I went ahead and corrected after I recorded this video. But if you see that error and you have all your all your other configurations set correct, then it's probably just that it can't find that file because you changed the name or something like that. So that's the reason that you see that mine is red right there. But all my other ones are correct. They all say OK. OCSP is OK. My primary location for my AIA is also OK, so we're not too concerned about that. But you see right there that my name is a little bit longer for my actual certificate than what I have it set to right now. So now let's go ahead and move forward. Let's right click on our Enterprise PKI and click on Manage AD Containers. And go ahead and check all those folders. You should see a status of OK for pretty much everything that we've configured up to this point. See my root CA and my sub CA, all status of OK. My CRL, status of OK. My certification authority container, also OK. And enrollment services container, OK. Now the next step, we're going to run a best practice analyzer scan. So let's open up Server Manager, and what we're going to do here, we're going to click on Active Directory CS on the left hand side, and then scroll down till you find Best Practice Analyzer, and on the right hand side you're going to click this little drop down where it says Task and Start BPA Scan, or Best Practice Analyzer Scan. Okay, and then we see some warnings right here. As you can see, I mean, it does what the name implies, right? It's a best practice analyzer. It's giving you some warnings on some things that you could change, maybe that you should change, and things like that. So this is mostly used, for like a troubleshooting thing, or just to set up your network in a better way. Let's go ahead and move forward and open up our certification authority so we can publish the workstation authentication at our sub-CA. So right click on your certificate templates folder and then select manage, or new certificate template to issue. And we're going to issue the workstation authentication template. All right, you see that we populated there. All right, so now our template is being issued. So now let's enroll a certificate on our workstation and then export, then validate its revocation status through CDP and OCSP and chain retrieval. So let me log into my workstation. This workstation is added to the domain right now. It's the same one that I've been using from previous labs, and it's already set up in its correct OU and everything. So even if I applied this GPO at a specific OU, it should be working properly. But I didn't, right? I applied the GPO that we configured earlier at the root of our domain. All right, so now that we're logged in to our workstation, I'm going to open up my MMC. And let's add a snap-in so that we can view our certificates. Okay, let's select certificates and add. We're going to change this to computer account. Click on next. Leave the setting as local computer and click on finish. Then click on OK. Now that we've added this snap-in, let's push on, click on the personal folder, right click on it, go to all tasks and request new certificate. Click on next at the before you begin page. Now once this is finished loading, we're going to click the drop down menu here and select Workstation Authentication. Click on Enroll. Once you view the details, if you would like, get a status of successful, and then go ahead and click on Finish. Alright, so once you finish, you can click on the certificate. See that this is a new folder, and I now have a certificate for my workstation issued by my sub-CA. I see that the certificate template that it's using is the workstation authentication. I can see my expiration date as well. So this completed successfully like we wanted it to. So now let's export our certificate by right-clicking on the certificate, selecting all tasks and selecting export. Click on next on the welcome page, click on next on the following page, and let's see, for the type, we're going to leave this as default. So go ahead and click on next. And then for the file name, we're going to save it to the root of our C drive and name it 11mu workstation 01. Once you're done with that, click on next and then click on finish. Alright, so now let's minimize this and open up the C drive, and we can view the certificate that we just exported in that folder. So now let's open up a PowerShell console as an administrator. And let's change the directory to the root of our C drive. So we'll type in cd and C drive. Now let's type in certutil space tag URL and 11mu workstation 01.cer and press enter. I'm going to open up this URL retrieval tool. So let's click on OCSP, click on retrieve, and ensure that our URLs are working correctly. So we get a status say verified for our OCSP. Let's check our URLs. Once again, verified, and then certs. All right, and we get a status of verified for all of those as well. So once you've completed that and you get a status of verified in all those, click on exit and then type in, we're going to change this command to CRL, tag verify, tag URL fetch, or space tag URL fetch, space 11mu workstation 01.cer. Now, this is a more thorough certificate chain and revocation validation technique compared to the cert util URL that we just ran before this. And we can see, as you can tell, some more in-depth information about how to verify our URL and certificate chain and revocation.